20 things grow in Bud Trainerio. This is a joint stream, guys. So if you're on Bud Trainer's channel, you're on my channel, you're seeing this stuff. And thanks for coming. We're going to have a great talk today. We have a couple of guests coming on. One of them is very familiar to the Bud Trainer. Well, I guess both of them are. We've done a few of these more than once, and we're going to move right into it. There is a little bit of stuff. We're going to give away a light today. This is a light that I'm donating through. I'm an affiliate marketer with AC Infinity. Everyone knows that I got codes here. I got codes there. I got codes for everything. I'm going to give it away with some of my store credit. So if you are in USA or Canada, you're going to get a chance to win a light here. There'll be a keyword thing. Kurt's the man. He's working it behind. But let's bring them up. So we got Kurt and we got Scott, baby. Here we go.
I like that. Getting introduced to our own channel.
That's awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah. How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. So today, man, we're talking about something that is on the next step for me as my journey goes through this breeding thing, and it's STS, right? It's feminizing. It's this. And listen, Scott, horticulture expert, extensive research, plant, blah 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 blah. Scott, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself so we everyone who doesn't know you can know what you do for a living.
Oh, okay. So my name is Scott Gollum. I am the Associate Director at the Horticultural and Environmental Sciences Innovation Center at Niagara College. So we oversee all the horticultural research that we do at the college, including cannabis research. So background, I set up a bunch of breeding programs for a lot of commercial cannabis LPs, and have been kind of doing that for quite a while now.
Nice. That's cool. And Kurt's background is Bud Trainer. My background is 420 things, right? So... but so before we get started, right? I know we were talking behind the scene before we started this, and Kurt said he was watching a video on some STS stuff, and the guy's like, maybe you should wear a mask, maybe you shouldn't. I don't think you have to. Well, let's for me, the biggest hurdle for me getting into this space to do it was always, man, this stuff is not like it's dangerous, right? So just like UVC lighting that I'm using in my tent, it's dangerous. You got to make sure you know what you're doing. And again, this is just a tool in your belt, guys. This conversation, hopefully it answers some of the questions that I have, because I'm asking the questions, so it should. But hopefully these are questions that you guys have, and we're gonna go through it, right? But so better than safe than sorry. Like, listen, you want to see what I got? Like, I went a little bit overboard. I went like, this is going to have like things here and protective. I mean, you can use a mask. There's a bunch of different things you can use, right? So, but again, to me, that's where I really would like to take it to this safety level, because it's, man, why don't you just do what you want to do? So maybe you can talk about that part, Scott, because you've dealt with this before, right? Like, you've done this in your guys' greenhouse.
Yeah, we've used STS for a really long time, and at the end of the day, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say like super dangerous, you know what I mean, like super toxic, but I mean the silver is really the part that's the hard part to deal with. So it is a heavy metal. It will accumulate in your body over time, so you really want to make sure that we kind of are taking proper safety precautions for that. So especially when you're spraying, you have the kind of everything mixed together. The biggest issue is that when you spray anything, you create really small droplets of water that are in the air. It makes it really easy to breathe in and really easy to bring in through your lungs and absorb through your skin. So really, I just tell everyone, whenever you're using silver thiosulfate, STS, basically just go safer than sorry, you know what I mean? So I've seen people use an N95 mask. From what I've seen, it would work, and I'd say that is the lowest safety you would want to use. Personally, whenever I'm spraying with it, I'm putting on a full face respirator, kind of like Mike just showed there, right? You want to use if you are using a respirator, the organic vapor filters are what you're going to be looking for. You can buy those pretty much anywhere. You can buy those respirators as well. If you don't have a full face respirator, make sure you're wearing safety goggles. Ideally, something to protect your face if there is a face shield or something like that. Safety goggles at a very minimum for that. And make sure you're wearing gloves and covering kind of your skin. So long sleeves. You don't want this spraying in your arms. Perfect.
I don't own a long sleeve shirt, so I bought these sleeve things on Amazon. They were dirt cheap, but my elbow will be exposed maybe, but maybe I can put two of them on here and get it right up here. But yeah, you're right? Not skin, right?
Yeah, no skin. If you do get it on your skin, you know what I mean? You want to wash that off as quickly as you can, obviously. There are reports when you see people in forums that have sprayed their arms and they'll say their skin goes really cold after. I haven't sprayed my arms, so I wouldn't recommend anyone try that. But if you are spraying with short sleeves and you feel that, probably a sign that you're doing something wrong.
So you're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
turn into the Silver Surfer when you spray yourself.
Yeah, typically when you see people accumulate silver in their skin, right, you end up going blue. So a lot of people that take colloidal silver, I know some people use it in the health and wellness space, and you'll see prolonged use of colloidal silver does lead to blue skin at higher concentrations. So that's really what we're trying to
Okay.
avoid here.
Well, I'm glad we're having this chat after my first spray of STS, because I had like a painter's mask, which was like barely airtight, sunglasses, although they were specific for growing from Method 7, and a long sleeve shirt. So I got the long sleeve shirt down. But I guess it's the over the course of time that repeat exposure is where you get into probably the more serious side effects. I'm going to tell myself
Mhm.
that at least.
Yeah.
Well, and let's pretend. I mean, like
Yeah.
I know, like
Like
probably in a
anything, right?
facility.
Repeat exposure is always where like major issues happen.
Oh, something's not right here.
Yeah, Scott, you just sped up and slowed down, but you're back now, I think. So all good.
So can you guys
Oh,
hear me?
okay.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, so Scott, so
Yes.
going back onto that, maybe you get some on your skin, it's going to get cold. Obviously, if I were to get some on my skin, if I was in like a lab environment, you'd have one of those shower things you'd pull down, maybe an eye wash. So I guess that would be the first thing to do is jump in the shower, right? Get it off you.
Yeah, with any kind of chemical spill of any kind, really, you're just going to basically treat the skin, obviously 10, 15 minutes, it's not just like a quick, rinse it off real quick and you'll be good. Again, your skin absorbs things very, very quickly. So you need to be like very conscious anytime you do get something on your skin.
Yeah. All right. So can you maybe just let's briefly, I mean, a high level explanation of what the STS spray does and what it does like on that biological level for the plant.
So basically what we do when we spray paint with STS, it's going to basically block the ethylene receptors and ethylene production in the plant. So typically when you start producing ethylene, that's what's going to form kind of those female flowers that we're typically seeing. When you block that pathway, what you end up doing is forcing the plant to throw out male pollen sacs instead. So the cool part about this is how you create feminized seeds, right? So if you have a female plant, you only have female genetics, but it's throwing out male flowers. So we know that we're going to have all female offspring when we use that pollen going forward.
Nice. And you mentioned colloidal silver as a health thing, but colloidal silver is another one of those widely available products that a home grower can get. The difference between STS and colloidal silver, from my understanding, is one's a little bit more potent, one works better, one's is like you get better results, and that's STS. Is that like a good synopsis?
Yeah, in my experience, I've used kind of both, and STS definitely gives you a better output, better conversion rates overall. I think a lot of it just comes to you typically have a lot higher silver concentration, and really the silver is the main ingredient that we're looking for out of this combination.
Okay. And listen, I know we talked about it the last time or the time before, and we talked about that apple tree PGR. Have you done anything into that? Are you has
No, I
movement or
haven't. I
anything?
haven't been able to get my hands on any of that yet to try it out. So it's coming. We did
Nice.
just get a cannabis. The Health Canada license just came through at our research greenhouse here at Niagara College.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So really looking forward to seeing what we can kind of do and get some little experiments like that going on the side that help give that knowledge to people.
Okay, so we're gonna dive into the. I mean, I guess what it boils down to is right now, if you were to pick one, STS is probably the best, easiest, more surefire way to do it for home growers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Okay. So now that we understand the basics, a little bit of the safety, like what it does and what it does. So we kind of briefly touched on it, the mask, the eyewear, and again, I went a little bit overboard. Kurt went a little underboard, right? So, my understanding is, I know we're going to get to it eventually, but there's a solution A and a solution B. There's two different items, and if we could just talk about those two separate items, because I was able to find them on the internet in Canada, super easy. They were here within the week. Can you maybe go over those two items, Scott?
Yeah. So if you're going to mix your own silver thiosulfate, what it is two different compounds. We're looking at silver nitrate and then sodium thiosulfate. So basically, they come as separate different things. They're usually kind of a powder crystally. The silver nitrate is kind of like a crystally white, and then the sodium thiosulfate's a powder. So typically, what I like to do is I'll make a stock A and a stock B solution, and then mix those two together. And once they're mixed together, that's when the liquid's going to turn a little bit more gray, and that's when it becomes the silver thiosulfate or STS that we're using.
Okay, so when you say the stock solution, so it's kind of like, for me, I use nutrients. I got an A and a B. It's kind of like that, right? So you wouldn't want to mix it all together at once. You want to have the A well mixed, and you want the B well mixed. So is it more stable when it's in the A and the B format? And then that would be the way to store it if you didn't have to use all of your solution at once? Or is it better to be stored, combined?
Yeah. So typically, whenever you're making stocks, kind of like your A and B, right? You want to keep them separate until they're actually mixed to use. That'll keep it fresh longer. It's really once the two kind of mix together, that's when you start to see that kind of degradation of silver over time, and it kind of falls out of solution, doesn't work as well. So if you're looking for long-term storage, just make an A solution with your silver nitrate, a B solution with your sodium thiosulfate, and then just mix them together
Okay.
right before you go to spray.
And my understanding, because I think I've seen some people talk about it, and you might have touched base with it, but refrigeration, does that help with prolonging it? Or that's like, can you just store it in your basement on a shelf, sealed up in a tight glass container?
So most things you see say to refrigerate it. The big thing is you want to make sure that you have it in a light-proof container. So I just see that you kind of pulled something up there. So if you can get amber glass, ideally you want to store it in glass. It's less reactive than plastics. Again, with plastic, there's a whole bunch of different types of plastic. So at least if you go with glass, glass is glass. It's non-reactive most of the time. In terms of refrigeration, I've kind of done it both ways, where I've had some refrigerated in the stock solutions, some not refrigerated. And overall, I haven't really seen too much of a difference. But most things you read say stored in a refrigerator.
Okay, and there would be, if let's say you had a extra refrigerator with nothing in it, that would be ideal. But like for me, I have a second freezer that I have like overstock for my fridge upstairs. Can this be stored with food, or is that probably shouldn't do that?
I'd probably recommend, in terms of safety, don't store chemicals with your food. It's kind of like you wouldn't put a bunch of pesticides into your food and hope for the best. You know what I mean? If you have no choice, I would store it on a door of a fridge or something like that, that if it were to spill, it wouldn't contaminate your food. But general rule of thumb, don't store chemicals with food you need to eat, especially when it's toxic.
Well, and I wasn't meaning like, listen, I have like 2 items in my fridge at some time, none in the other time. As long as the jar's sealed, and I was even thinking about, maybe putting a piece of plastic over there and then tightening it down to make sure that it's really sealed. If it stays in the jar and there's no spillage, it's not like it's gonna slowly leak out of the container, right?
No, no, as long as it's sealed up and it's fine, I don't see an issue with it being stored in the fridge with something else. You just want to make sure it's not going to spill.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense, right? But I wasn't sure. I'm like, well, maybe it leaks out
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So store it upright. You know what I mean? Don't, if you have a mini fridge, don't put it on its side, because then it has the potential to leak out the lid and things like that, right?
Yeah. And again, sealed, obviously you wouldn't want it open because it would evaporate or whatever. So I guess what it boils down to is, okay, so I also, in the mixing, we're going to get to that later, but what actually I'm jumping around here, but if I were to talk about, let's say we were to do some and we were to mix it and we'd use your formula that gives us, a stock A and a stock B, and let's say there's just a little bit left, how do you dispose of this? As a whole, like I wouldn't want to pour this down my sink, which goes into my septic, which then goes into the groundwater. So that's clearly not, if I had a little bit on my skin, sure, I would want to rinse it. But if I had, whatever, 10 mils, 20 mil, whatever is the leftover, what should one do with that as a home grower?
Yeah. So with this solution, especially because of the silver nitrate in there, you don't ever want to put it in the water. It will contaminate wastewater streams. It doesn't get kind of pulled out. So what you're typically going to do, if you have extra and leftover from spraying that you're not going to use, if you you put it in a sealed container. So if, again, you have it in the container that it's in, you can take it to the hazardous waste site that they have at basically all municipal dumps. So same if you're dropping off, like paint cans, propane tanks, things like that. It's kind of that same area. You drop it off there at the waste site, and then they have the facilities to kind of deal with whatever it is. You just need to make sure that you label with what it is that's in it. That's the number one thing, so that when they are disposing of it, they know what they can and can't mix that with.
Okay. And disposing of it, if I've had these jars and I wanted to clean it out and I wanted to give it to them, because that was my next thing is, okay, now I get rid of the excess, but I want to use this jar again, right? So I'd put some water in this, clean it out, put it back into that container. So make sure your container you're disposing of has some extra space, and then you can mix them together. It could be the final spray that you're alleviating, but then you can add does that make sense to just kind of rinse it out?
Yeah. So again, kind of treat it similar to how you would with pesticides, right? And you're kind of triple rinse a container and then make sure that you're putting that into another container that you will be disposing of it in a proper manner.
Yeah, that triple rinse. I used to do work on a golf course, right? So we used to do spray on the greens and stuff like that. And sure enough, it was the jug, fill it up, shut it, 3, right? So
Yeah.
that's a good point. I never even thought about that. But as soon as you said it, I was like 3, like I knew that was coming, right? So,
Mike, we have a question here in the chat
oh,
if you want to jump to this real quick.
sure. What's the mildest formulation of STS that can be used with sensitive plants? I'm seeing leaf burn with STS normal. Well, listen, we're going to answer this plants 416. We're not there yet. I have a plan to go through step by step. We're going to get there because Scott's got a formula that he shared with me and Kurt that he's had decent success with. We're going to get to that for sure. So, it's coming. It's coming, baby.
Stay tuned is the answer. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Do you want to do the giveaway thing, or should we wait? I guess we should probably wait, about halfway through. Yeah, we're only 15 minutes in. We'll wait.
Yeah, I mean, if people put the keyword in, then they can just leave and not listen to this amazing chat. We have to force them to be here, right? So,
all right. So, and again,
after all,
what is very funny is my next question under the disposal methods was, do different concentration of stock solutions change the safety precautions? So I'm always going back to that safety, right? Whether it's works better on the plant, works less on the plant, or like, hey, wait a minute, I put double the amount by mistake. All of a sudden, is this thing more hazardous, or is it kind of like it's the same thing? I guess I'm just trying to get like possibilities that could happen, right?
Yeah, so if we're making stock solutions, that's when it's going to be at its most concentrated form. So when it's in kind of the raw material form, as well as when we make a stock concentration, because typically what we're going to do with a stock is make a concentrated formula that we then kind of dilute into our working solution that we will use to spray the plant. So anytime we have stocks, more dangerous, I would say, than so. PPE, make sure you're wearing it whenever you're using these chemicals. You know what I mean? Even weighing out the chemicals, things like that, you still want to have kind of that respirator on. You don't want to be breathing in, especially at that point where it's the fully concentrated chemical on its own. You don't want to be breathing that in.
And then you want to start with the water and then put A into the water first, then B, or do you go A and B together and then dilute it down?
So most things, it's usually safer just to put the water in first, so that anytime you are adding something to it, it's going to dilute that further. Because if I have a concentrated solution that I pour water in after, that could also splash out on you. You know what I mean? And then it's in its most concentrated form, and again, the most dangerous to be using at that time.
Gotcha. So I can tell you what my plan is to do here, Kurt. So I've got this container, and I don't know if you can see it in here. Yeah, you can see that white plastic thing. That is a magnet. And what I have bought is a magnetic store. So what I'll do is I'm going to put the water in the measurements in there. I'm going to put this on this, and I'm going to start it up. So it'll start spinning, and the water will be like a thing. And then what I've done is I've grabbed some metal. I've got 2 separate because I don't want to mix the 2 materials together. I have one here for this one here for the second solution, so that I'll be able to put the solution in here while it's mixing and not have to worry about I'll have it on half speed and I'll be able to see the water. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
I must say, when I talked to H about joining Bud Trainer, one of the things was he was going to teach me how to grow. I never would have imagined I would be this far down the rabbit hole like 4 or 5 years later. So I just want to say, Mike, you've taken me to depths I did not expect to go to.
Hey man, this is that next progression. I keep saying it, talking to people about this. I go, how to grow?
People just go to like extracts. You're like, let's make our own.
But growing's decently easy for me, man. I've got it dialed in with the bud cups and the drippers, man. I got it dialed in. So what's the next thing? Well, it's this, in my opinion, right? So try it. I mean, maybe not STS is like that next level, but that's that first step. We did the first step. Now we're on to the second step. Another thing that I bought, Kurt, is I just wanted to show this. This is a high-end to 3 to the right of the decimal scale, because a lot of the reading that I've done is you want to be super precise on this when you're mixing your stock A and stock B, that you're putting that each one, whether it's the crystals or the powder or whatever, that you're accurately putting it in. If you had a only to the 1, you may be off by a bit, and then your solution's either too high or too low, right? So is that something you guys do?
I just eyeballed mine. I just eyeballed it. I was like, that looks about half and half. I did it like raised above the final container, mixed them both at the same time.
Don't do this, people. This is the part that you don't listen to. That last 3 seconds.
My name's Curtis, and welcome to Jackass.
Yeah, no. Whenever you're doing anything in chemistry, precision matters, right? If you're trying to do it in the most kind of safe manner that you can, you want to make sure that you're measuring things out as effectively as you can. So, again, having a scale that weighs more, a couple more decimal places, definitely beneficial. I mean, if you only have a scale that does say to 1 decimal place, yeah, you're still probably okay. You know what I mean? But again, more precision's always better.
Can't hurt, right? It was pretty cheap. I thought it was going to be like super expensive, but it was like $29. I'm like, I could use another scale. Now, I'm only going to use a scale just for this, because I don't want to have a little bit of remnants or a little bit of whatever left over, which I highly doubt there's going to be, because I'm going to be very precise in what I'm doing. I don't have them here, but I have some I have my own, each 2 separate spoons to measure in. I'm keeping everything separate, right? So I guess we're progressing right into that. So do you want to talk? And I know I have it on email. I know Kurt has it in email. And maybe you can rhyme it off by heart. Your sort of mixing ratios, or is that too much to ask you, like on the spot?
No, I pulled it up here, so I got it here on my
nice.
computer for you. Perfect, in case you asked. So when I tried to make this mix originally, I used it for our commercial facility, and basically, how do we keep it as simple as I can kind of going forward? So for my stock A solution, which is always my silver nitrate, I use the 1,000 milliliter or 1 liter amber glass jars there. So in 1 liter of water, I'm going to put in 1 gram of silver nitrate. So that one makes pretty simple. In chemistry standpoints, it brings it out to about 5.89 millimolar is our stock concentration. And then when we look at kind of our stock B, it's going to be our sodium thiosulfate. So in that one, we use a bit more. So we're going to use 3.73 grams per 1,000 milliliters or per liter. And again, make sure you label them A and B as well as what it is. And good scientific practice, always put the concentration that you're using. So that gives us our stock A and stock B. When it comes to mixing the STS, I found that I don't typically use much more than, about 500 mils when I'm spraying those plants. So what I did for this mix, the way I made these ratios originally, is that I take 100 milliliters of stock A, 100 milliliters of stock B, and then add it to have 390 milliliters of water. So it's a little bit over that kind of 500 mils, but it just made it a really quick and simple 100 mils of each one. You know what I mean? You're not mixing different ratios. It just simplified it for everybody on a commercial level. That way, no questions, anybody can do that. One thing I will say is that if you put your water in first, then add your 100 mils of stock A, 100 mils of stock B, get it stirring around. One of the big things that does make a big difference, I found, is if you add a little bit of a surfactant. So in this case, I typically use, you can use, if you're at home, use a couple drops of dish soap. If you have access to kind of higher level surfactants in a lab, I would typically use a tween 20. And if you're not sure what a surfactant is, basically what it is it helps break the surface tension on the water. So when you spray, think of it kind of spraying a car that's been waxed. You spray it and you'll see the water form into droplets and kind of run off. What a surfactant does is it makes it basically spread out into a full liquid layer instead of dropleting up. So what this does is that we get better coverage on the plant overall without kind of that dripping that kind of pulls off the chemical you're trying to basically stick to the leaf.
Okay, so that would, for me, when I hear that, I go, okay, so I need to put X amount of water in. And you said distilled water, right? Or maybe you didn't say it, but you want to be using distilled here, or RO, or something that has less stuff?
Yeah, distilled or RO are preferable if you have it. If you don't, you can use tap water. I've done that in the past as well and not seen anything too crazy. But again, a lot of it comes to what's your tap water source. If you're on a well, you have really hard kind of mineralized water, that's going to affect badly and it's going to react with that STS. So again, if you're using typical city water, you're probably okay, but water quality is a hard one to say everyone's the same.
Unless you get distilled, right? Because it's free and
Yeah.
clear of all that stuff, right? Which is,
yeah, if you get distilled or RO, you're good.
yeah, and I use distilled water. I have a CPAP machine. I got to put water in it every night. So it's hard to find distilled water sometimes. It's not in every store. Pharmacies usually have it. Just as an FYI, if you're having a problem getting it, pharmacies usually carrying a gallon of it, right? So I heard a lot of cool things there, man. For one, I have the 1 liter jar. But you know what I'm thinking about doing is I'm never going to use this much, right? And to go with this much, I'm going to be storing it for long periods of time. So I want to cut it down. And for people who are not from Canada or that don't deal with milliliters and liters and all that stuff, it's kind of cool because it's generic, right? It's not a cup and a gallon and a whatever. But if I were to say, I don't want to do 1,000 1 liter, I can do 500, cut that 1 gram into half a gram, or even if I want to get it down to 250, I can take it and divide it by 4, right? And then I shouldn't have any issues. Or is there like a minimum you should mix with when doing your stock A and stock B?
No, you can go with really any kind of minimum you need for your stock A and stock B. I guess the absolute minimum would be if we're using 1,000 milliliters to mix up 500 mils of spray solution. So depending on how much spray solution you want to mix up, that's really what's going to be kind of your limiting number. But again, if you use kind of the numbers that I gave you, it's just basically divided out based on how many milliliters you want, and that's how much you're going to do to kind of scale that ratio up or down.
Well, I guess it would all depend on the size of the plant you're doing and doing that, right? Like, so I guess the next thing is when you are, so you've taken stock A, you've taken stock B, you've put it in, a couple drops of soap. Last time I mixed up something, I used castile soap. Is that a decent one to use too instead of the Dawn, or is that
I think
not?
any soap should work, really. Again, each soap has slightly different properties, but really the big thing is if it suds up, then it's going to have kind of that surfactant factor in it. So
Perfect. Okay. So when combining the sprays, you're like, so I've combined it. Let's say now I'm at the step where I've stock A, stock B. I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to use a stirrer in my spray bottle or whatever I'm going to use. Is there a certain amount of time you should let that, mix or mix it for 10 minutes, mix it for 5 minutes, let it sit for another 10 minutes? Or is it once you've got it thoroughly mixed, a few minutes of mixing, you're ready to go and you're good to go?
yeah, since we're using a stock solution, we've already kind of dissolved the actual chemical into the water. So it is in a liquid solution already. So it should mix pretty homogeneously as soon as we add them together. So just kind of mix them together. Again, you see it typically goes kind of that grayish tint is really the thing. So once it's mixed together, shake it around, stir it around for a couple minutes, you should be good to go.
Yeah. And listen, I don't know if anybody's ever used one of these magnetic stirrers. They get going pretty quick. Is there maybe if I let it go for too long, maybe it started to generate heat? Is there any heat or coolness that affects this, end STS solution, or is it decently viable with fluctuations in heat, or should we keep it cold, or should we keep it warm?
Yeah. Should be kind of decently viable, really, most temperatures. I wouldn't heat it, obviously. So room temperature or colder would probably be the best way to use that.
Okay. And now we're talking about spraying, man. So this is we mixed it, we've done it, we've been safe, everything's good. We got it in a bottle and we're ready to spray, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't water this in, right? There's no way to do that. It has to be sprayed on the nodes of areas, right?
Yes. So you want to make sure you spray all of the nodes of the plant, depending on what your goal is. I typically will convert a whole plant over. I have gone different ways where I will literally just convert the top portion of a plant, but it's hard to not get sprayed down lower on the plant. So depending how you want to do it, if you are looking at if you're limited on plants and you want to just have one plant and have it say self itself, you know what I mean? What I've done is I've taken basically a piece of Bristol board, made a little funnel that I wrapped around that top cola and spray just that top one. And that way the top will convert. So when the pollen drops, it'll hit all the lower branches and create seed on that plant. But typically I'll just spray the entire plant and make sure you get as much coverage on the nodes as you can. I typically spray until the whole plant is very wet. Not necessarily, I get a little bit of runoff, but you don't want a whole lot of runoff coming down because again, the silver in the actual pot itself, in your soil or media, whatever you're using, isn't good to saturate all of that part. So really just try and make sure you focus on getting it sprayed on the plant matter itself.
Yeah, see, and that's one of the concerns that I had, and I talked to Kurt, and we're not going to talk about Kurt's process because he eyeballed stuff, and let's just forget about
I'm
that.
just messing with you.
Listen. So my thoughts are: this is a perfect small 2x2 little small tent. Now it has a fan, it has a filter. Obviously, that would be turned off. But if I'm going to be doing, let's say, the whole plant, because I want to collect it and I want to put it to some other plants, and we'll get to some of that stuff later. But if I were to put this in here and this plant was in here and I were to open this up and I were to get my spray and I would, like you said, spray to the plant, there's going to be silver salt. Like that solution is going to it's going to drip. It's going to be on the tent below. It's going to be on the plant. Obviously it's going to dry up, but like when it's wet, I'm assuming that there should be no fans on to aerosol it out. But like, at what point do you go, okay, the plant is now I like these view windows, right? I could see in and look, and I go, oh, look, the plant's dry now. It's not soaking wet anymore. Is that when we should probably start turning on fans and stuff? And I guess that second part is, well, what about the off drip that came on that's on the ground of the tent now? From the overspray or just the drips from the plant if you made it wet? Is that something you should prevent by putting up maybe like a garbage bag or something like that? Just maybe tips and tricks you would think of. I know you do it in a different environment, but maybe like the homeowner in a tent or in their house, what it's about.
Yeah, so typically what I do if I'm going to spray in kind of a small tent like you have is I'll just I'll like I'll cut a garbage bag open so it kind of folds open, and I'll kind of use that around the edge of the wall, and so it sits underneath the plant. One thing I like to use when I'm spraying these plants is just get a really cheap kind of Lazy Susan. I know I had one from like IKEA or something like that at one point. So you can set your plant on that, and then as you're spraying, you can just kind of spin it around. Makes it a lot easier because you don't want to be kind of reaching through a plant. It's hard to spray, especially in a little tent. So something you can kind of spin makes it a whole lot easier to
Cake
apply. And that way you're
spinners.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I got a
Um,
cake spinner for taking photos of plants once, and they're like $3. It was the
yeah.
best investment I've made for photos. So that's a great tip there.
Perfect. And yeah, and when it comes to kind of spraying the plant, what I'll do is I'll turn my fans off, my lights off, I'll spray the plant, and then basically just wait until the plant is dry. Once the plant's dried, then you can kind of turn your lights and fans back on. You typically don't see any issues with the plants. What we're really trying to do is let it dry into the plant so it really absorbs into all those leaves and all the spots. So again, we want that silver to go in. If we have lights and fans on, it's going to basically speed up that evaporation of the chemical, and it basically doesn't going to stick to the plant as well.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. I just thought it would be whatever. I'm trying to not have to wear my mask beside my thing, right? Like so, but no, that makes sense that it's not absorbing, right? So maybe we can just touch base on it because I know you gave Kurt the protocol and I remember in the email you're like, hey man, I really want to know your opinion when you spray it. Are you thinking that it's not really working? He goes, I have that problem every time. So not only when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll have to think about that. Kurt, he messaged me, man, I think I screwed up. It's not working. And I'm like, man, Scott told me. He's like, you're going to think this. So when do you start spraying? When at what points in the plant cycle, and what makes sense if you're going to, do it like that multiple times?
So typically when I'm using the STS, what I'll do is I'll spray 5 days before I flip the plant to flower. That basically allows that, because again, we're trying to block that ethylene production. So that allows it before it starts flowering and starts trying to produce and go down that pathway. We're kind of trying to cut that off beforehand. So 5 days before flower, and then basically every 5 days after that for a total of 3 to 4 applications. Usually you can get away with about 3 applications. But the weird part about the STS is that like you were saying, you'll spray the plant and you could be, 2.5, 3 weeks into flower and be like, nothing's happening. It looks the same. You might even see a couple of pistils here and there, that you're like, it definitely didn't work. And even now, like I've been doing this for years, and every single time I swear you get to the point where you're like, I don't know. I feel like it's just not working. Maybe I did something different this time. I don't know. And it's this weird kind of psychological thing that happens with the plant. I think because you're so excited to see these male flowers come out, and you're just like watching it every day and being like, come on, man, where are these things?
Yeah, just one more quick thing on the timing before we dive deeper into the male side. Like, just maybe talk about timing for the female that you want to pollinate. Let's say that you're going to pollinate a different plant rather than doing the top down.
So I find usually I'll start the males about a week to a week and a half kind of before I want to convert a female over to flower. So the main reason is this is that you're going to see it's going to take 3, maybe 4 weeks for that kind of male to actually start throwing out pollen sacs. Whereas the female, the pistils don't really start accepting pollen until about kind of, I think optimal is around kind of day 14 to 21 of flower. In that kind of range is when they really start being able to accept that pollen. So if you put them both in at the same time, what you'll find is that the male, the female starts flowering, you see all these pistils coming out and you're all excited, and then the male's not doing anything. And you're like, hey, come on, guy. So you want to make sure that the male is ahead by a couple of weeks. That way you can kind of catch up and it kind of hits at roughly the same time point that the pollen actually lands on the plant and goes.
And that would be a bonus to also doing the whole plant and collecting the pollen, then having to, that top window to go to the bottom, you're going to have run into that same problems, right? Because you can only flush the lights for the whole plant, right? So
that's the hard part, right? So, if you're doing a single plant and spraying the top and doing a multi-conversion, you will find that some of the buds, that's where you almost want to wait for, let some of those smaller lower branches come out. They'll be a lot more delayed, kind of the ones that are typically larvae kind of buds that you see, because they'll accept the pollen better since they're a bit later growth.
Yeah, and John's got a great question here. I see it up there. It's in my notes. That was the next. We're almost there, but regardless, let's deal with John's. John, thank you very much.
Okay. I'm glad you're so organized because I got 6 questions starred. So if you're asking questions in the chat, guys, I am starring it. We will cover it all at the end. But I think Mike's got this dialed in, and we're just gonna hit them on the way.
Were you looking at my notes? But whatever. Like you're like, oh,
you sent me the notes. I had a long day. I didn't get to the notes. I'm excited too because I do have a picture of my male ready to go. So tell me when you want to see that. And
well, you can do that whenever. But let's get to John's question, because John's is a great question, because the spraying part, masks, this, fans, whatever, and that really, why not? Like, or a sponge or any sort of anything that's not airborne to, coat that area. And I know you saying spray it to runoff, so to me, that's a lot of excess. And I would think that maybe something like John is referring to, a paintbrush or some sort of whatever on a stick, and just kind of dab it and kind of make it wet. But is that not something is just too much work and you guys spray it, or like can maybe touch base on it?
Yeah, no, something like that would definitely work, right? As long as you can apply the to the plant, it's going to absorb that through its kind of leaf stem, kind of all that area. So however you want to apply it, a paintbrush would be perfectly good, especially if you're looking kind of using smaller amounts. Again, I've used more on a commercial perspective. So I'm either collecting a lot of pollen or I'm really trying to pollinate a whole room. So I'm looking for maximum conversion.
Yeah. So to me, that's where it is. You do it. And again, the same thing, plastic bag, put the brush in. It's got silver on there. Don't throw that in the garbage. Don't throw that outside. Keep in with that same sort of hazardous waste. It gets right. Because it's there. Is it always there? Does it dry up and go off? No. Right. So.
Yeah, this question was also kind of on that same topic of application. I would imagine electric fog sprayer would be a little bit more dangerous than, even a hand spray, unless you're in a commercial setting where you're doing a ton of plants.
Yeah, typically I wouldn't use an electric fogger just because, again, you don't want it as airborne. We want it to kind of stick to the plant. So really, we're trying to keep the droplet size a little bit larger in this application. So we get the coverage that we want and keep it not as kind of contaminating any other space that you plan on working in after. So typically I'll either use a spray bottle or I like the little kind of 1 gallon or 1 liter kind of pump sprayers that you have, little pesticide applicator ones, just on kind of a smaller misting kind of nozzle side of things. But I wouldn't recommend going with the electric fogger just because the droplet size is a little bit too small.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe if we are not spraying the whole plant, whether we're doing half the plant, whether we're doing the whole plant, but just a fine tuned application, where is the best place? Like, should we go an inch above, an inch below? Like, what is, not fully spraying it, but not covering enough, try to get that equal spot, right?
So you basically want to hit all the nodes or all kind of the growth tips specifically. Again, higher on the plant is better, but again, depends what you're looking for. So I usually say higher on the plant because ideally your males are going to grow up taller than your females. Pollen's going to drop down. So if I do lower on the plant, you have less ability for that pollen to kind of float up in the air, unless you have kind of good circulation fans, things like that. But ideally higher on the plant, pollen's going to drop and fall down. just naturally with gravity.
So for me, when I think about this, I go, I'm going to probably use the paintbrush method or some sort of method, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to start at the bottom and then work my way up to the top so that I'm not at the top and stuff's dripping down onto my arms, trying to keep that safety thing in it, right? Like it's all about, and you, like you said, that's Lazy Sue is a great idea. Just do that one. Do that one, right? So as long as you have a container that's not spilling and not whatever, right? And again, like if it were to drop, like what do? You fucking get, your gloves are still on, you soak it up with paper towels, throw it in a garbage bag and mark it as hazardous, or some sort of absorball or something, like for like oil spills, or like, is there something for a spill?
Yeah, ideally you'd want to kind of soak it up with something that's going to absorb that, right? So paper towel is kind of what everyone has around, but again, it's going to be kind of absorbed into that, so you need to dispose of it effectively. Cat litter, if somebody has that laying around, that usually works really well for absorbing things as well. If you have something for oil spills, obviously use it, but I'd say most people, it's probably going to be paper towel or cat litter or something like that.
What about like a baking soda? Would that work?
I'm not sure about the baking soda. I don't think anything in it would react, but again, it's a chemical that you're kind of absorbing, so generally not good to mix chemicals with chemicals when you don't know how they're going to react.
Gotcha.
So when we're saying, 5 days, and then we've gone through the whole process, my understanding of some of the research that I've done is that different cultivars are different receptors, right? Like some respond really well to STS, and others won't produce either any pollen at all. There may be sacs, but there'll be no pollen or very little pollen. Is there anything that you've seen to like in this and go, well, when we see that, maybe we try a higher solution, or no, we don't, maybe it's less of a solution because maybe it's too much and that's why it's less? Or is there anything like scientifically about certain cultivars not producing male pollen?
Yeah, so I have seen kind of different cultivars will convert faster or not as quickly or not as well. So typically what you see is a lot of the certain cultivars have been kind of really inbred kind of pretty deeply by people, don't always convert as effectively as kind of newer kind of F1 crosses, things like that. So it is kind of between the plants. You'll see kind of in the literature that people recommend spraying anywhere from kind of 30 parts per million of silver in the solution up to about 150. The solution that I have, I did a quick calculation on it. It comes out about 100 parts per million. So it is on the slightly kind of higher end, kind of middle, I guess you would say, for what people do. And I found that that concentration has worked really well for me on almost every plant that I've used. If you do have a plant that isn't converting as well, you could just mix it a little bit more concentrated out of your stock solution. So, go with say 150 milliliters instead of 100 of each one into your spray. And that'll kind of increase that a little bit.
Yeah.
But typically the rate that I'm using, I chose that one over kind of trial and error through all these different varieties. It seems to work as good across all cultivars that I've come across so far. So it seems to be pretty solid.
I just want to say though, like, do not, if you think it's not working, we've said this already, but just do not give up on it, because I'm checking my notes. I did the first spray on February 14th. Mike messaged me March 10th and asked if there was any signs yet, and I said no. The next day I saw them. So that's 24 days from the first spray. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. No, that is oh, am I doing it right? Am I whatever, right? So I guess now now overall breeding, right? We've had multiple discussions about breedings, F1s, F2s, S1s. So if you're taking this feminized pollen that we've made with the STS, whether you're collecting it and putting it right on that same plant, or putting it onto a cut that it's the same plant because it's a clone of that same plant, that's where you get the S1, right? What does this mean when you take that fem pollen and put it onto another cultivar, a different breeder, a different whatever? Does that give us an F1 that's feminized? Is that how that works?
Yes. Yeah. So anytime we're kind of taking two separate plants, that's how you get your F1. If you're taking the exact same plant, that's going to be your S1 or your self version of that.
Okay. Now, I guess, what does this mean if you take it? So I guess I guess my concept is listen, herms are a topic that breeders, some talk about it, some don't. Some think it's a taboo subject. Almost all of the feminized seeds that I've used, either like let's just say a 10-pack that I've popped, there may be one that get herms, to 10, all 10 get herms. Like who knows, right? So in relation to herms, I guess just talk about herms on a selfed plant with pollen, and then we'll get into the other ones where we're crossing. But or is there any difference, and that herm trait is viable in everything?
The herm trait will be viable in everything. Really, the big thing is that if you have a plant that's predisposed to herming in kind of any of its background genetics, you have the risk of carrying that forward, because it is kind of that instability in there. So especially we look at kind of traditional kind of cannabis breeding or kind of just pollen checking, I guess you would say. People got, hey, this is the highest THC strain that's out there, and I'm going to cross the next highest THC. So we've kind of just not necessarily been selecting for the plant viability or not hermaphroditing kind of tendencies. It's just been based on kind of chasing THC typically. So I think what it comes down to is just selectively stressing plants. If you are going to do breeding, it is worth kind of having a couple clones of that, see what happens under a drought stress, see what happens if you get too much light, see what happens if you feed too high of an EC. If it starts to hermaphrodite under those stress, then you know that it has that susceptibility and you're likely to pass that on if you use it in a cross. If it doesn't have that, then it means it's likely a bit more solid and a bit more stable, and you're less likely to pass that on.
See, that's cool. So I've done some of that in my, so I didn't do it in the feminized version because I'm not doing that yet. I still have all the stuff ready to go. I'm making F2. So I'm making 2 different F2s right now. I have the Kurt cut, and it's over there, and it's pollinated on itself, or not on itself, but from a male that I picked. And then what this one I'm doing in here, I already have the male that I have. I've taken a clone, I've put it off to the side. I'm going to breed with now the winner of my 22 phenos that I have in there. I've drought tested them, and they were like, I'm like, ooh, because I'm growing in the old bud cups. I was like, maybe I went a bit too far on the dry back. By the next morning, I'm like, oh, fed them, you know what I mean? And they bounced back. Some of them were a little bit slower than others, and I am seeing a little bit of stuff. I'm hitting them with high light, I'm hitting them with high EC, and I may have given them a few light leaks here and there throughout the flowering process. And I can tell you that I had almost all uniform buds before I started doing this testing. And then after the heat, the buds on some of them started to change a little bit and have different structure, and the leaf coloring wasn't as nice. And I'm like, ooh, cross that one off the list. Ooh, cross that one off the list. So I'm glad to know that that's, whether it's herm, whether it's anything weak. I mean, if you're doing breeding, that's, like you said, it's an important part to do, right? So as everyone should be doing some of that stuff.
That's what I think, right? And especially for people that are kind of breeding and giving away seeds, stuff like that. Nobody wants to get a plant that, like, you're all excited to get some seeds and it's a big hermy plant and you kind of waste your time with it, right? So I think breeding for stability and those kind of traits, and even looking at things like what's that bud structure look like? There's a lot of kind of floppy branches that come out. Look for stronger branching, like all of the characteristics you want in kind of a nice, healthy, strong plant. Those are the plants you want to take forward in a breeding cycle. Don't just kind of take any and every plant that you have.
Okay. So
sorry, Mike, quick question here. Back to just before we get past the kind of the characterizing the S1, F1, whatever. So I'm selfing the Kurtz cut. If I then pollinate another clone of the Kurtz cut, that's an S1 for sure. What if I use that reverse pollen on an F1 of the same cross? Like that would be an F2, or is it a different word because I'm not using an actual male? It's a selfed female.
It kind of depends, because if you're taking kind of a lower generation, I guess, and crossing it to one of the previous ones, then you're looking at kind of more of a back cross, because you're kind of going backwards to kind of stabilize some of those traits that you liked from some of the first initial parents. So the nomenclature gets a little bit tricky, a little confusing for people a lot of the time. So basically, if you're thinking, if you're kind of breeding down and it's kind of all new plants coming out of it, that's where you kind of go F1, F2, F3. But as soon as you start kind of going back to one of those parent plants with kind of the offspring, that would be considered a back cross at that point.
So the parent plant would be the freeze-dried donuts, or that's, sorry, I'm just confused. Like that would be the parents of the freeze-dried donuts is what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you have a freeze-dried donuts, you self that, right? And then you
So
are
I have a
taking the pollen.
freeze-dried donuts. I find the pheno that I like. So
Which
then
is
I
an
reverse
F1.
that one. That's the F1. So I reverse the F1 to get the pollen. Take that pollen to, say, another F1 seed that has, say, good structure. That would be a back cross, or is that an F2?
If it's another F1, it would almost be a new F1 because you're crossing to kind of another type
Interesting.
of plant.
Okay.
So it's an F1 of that new cross of plants.
So to get an F2, I need to have a male F1 and a female F1 and have those interchange.
Yeah, or a converted kind of male. So yeah, as long as it's basically you're taking two of the seeds out of that initial cross. So plant 1 and 2 are the offspring. If I cross those together, that becomes the F2.
Awesome. All right. The guy in the big screen is Scott, genetics expert, breeding specialist, Niagara College, very smart guy, smartest in the room right now. This here is Mike, 420 Things Grow in Ontario. Good guy, home grower, been doing it for a while. Me, I'm just somehow ended up here after stopping taking science in grade 10. Had a friend that started a company called Bud Trainer. He needed help with sales. I really wanted to learn how to grow weed, and I'm Kurt. So there you go. For those showing up late who don't know us. In fact, let's take a quick minute to shout out the 92 people watching this between the 5 channels we're on. Mike's going to be giving away a light a little bit later. Bud Trainer's going to throw in a Big Bud bundle as well. We'll do 2 winners because this will be an outdoor prize from Bud Trainer. But let's try to get to 100 across 5 channels. So we need 9 more people in here to get these giveaways going to hit 100.
Share it out.
And if
Share
we
it
don't
out.
hit 100, maybe we'll still do it. But anyways, back to our host, Mike.
Okay, so Kurt rudely interrupted me, and I guess my questions were very on the sideline of what he was doing. So my question was not the way he went. So let's say we do this and we self it, right? We make a whole whack of S1 seeds. Now I have S1 seeds, and whether I take those and I guess reverse them, like I don't want to go backwards, like you said. I don't want to back cross, but should we be doing all the work in the F series before we start selfing it? Or is there a way to go from an S1 batch of seeds, whether it's selfing it, whether it's this, whether it's mixing, like how do we work the S1 further? Or should we have done it in the F series? You know what I mean?
So it really depends on what you're looking for out of the cross. So the big point of doing an S1 is that's where you start to see the recessive traits. So the one that I like to use as an example is purples. Purples usually come out in more of an S1. You usually see green buds, you know what I mean? Purple are a much smaller kind of amount that come out in a cross. So if I'm looking for something purple, you're going to find that out of the S1. So what I would do from there is select that purple plant, and then from there you can cross it back to as a back cross to a parent plant to say I like the structure, but I'm looking to kind of take that purple with the structure. It really depends on kind of what traits you're looking for. So the way I really try and simplify it for most people is that if I have this one plant has purple, so the one has really great bud structure, I'm looking for a purple with good bud structure, I'm going to cross those 2 plants. I'm not really kind of thinking so much about whether I'm going down the self lines or kind of going the F1 lines, things like that. When you are looking at kind of going down, really where it means is if you're going to look at deep breeding, so if we're going to go say to an F5 to F7 kind of area, that's when you're going to start to see a lot of stabilization in those seeds. So if I grow 100 seeds, 90, 95 of them will all look pretty much the exact same. And ideally that's where we're going to if we're looking at breeding, as opposed to just kind of a whole variety where everything's different each time. That's where I look at selecting those traits over time to kind of stack plants that I like the features of, and then out of those offspring, which of those plants have the features that I was looking for in that combination.
Okay. No, that's so like Kurt found this cut and he found it and it was like, hey, let's it was a winner, right? So I mean, to me, as a breeder, or even somebody who is, I guess, dabbling in breeding or moving forward with something, if you get a plant, ideally you're going to keep the clone forever, and you're just going to keep cloning it. You're going to grow that all the time. It's your medicine. It gives you the everything checks all the boxes, right? But let's be honest, mistakes happen, and sometimes mothers disappear, right? So to self it to itself, because it's it's all the same things, and it's making some offspring. How close are we really to that one that we just selfed? Is it close, or is it like you said, if an F5 is 95%, if we were to try to use it to preserve genetics for yourself or your family or something, in that's something you want yourself, what does that rate look like on a selfed plant ish?
It's gonna stabilize a little bit more. So again, if say we're growing like 100 seeds, you might find kind of, say, about 30 of them are kind of going down that kind of road that you're looking for, and then you're going to see a whole lot of kind of weird variations of weird things that come out. So again, with the self, that's where like all the really weird stuff shows up when you start selfing plants. Typically, if you cross with something like two nice plants that you like, you get, for the most part, some pretty good looking plants. But selfing is when you see those really weird oddball cases start showing up a little bit. So you will get some proportion of the plants that are what you wanted, but it's not going to be anywhere above kind of 50 to 100%.
Okay. So then if we're to do that, and we're to use Kurt's
it's hard to store in seed that way.
Yeah, okay. So, but if we do it in Kurt's example, and he found this one, he liked it, he's selfing it, he's doing it, boom, he's got these seeds. Now he's got it, and he goes, okay, he's still going to keep that other one, maybe, because he doesn't want to get rid of the mom, and it's not an accident. And now he moves through, and he starts some of those S1 seeds, and he starts 10, and he gets it down, and he's got 4 really good ones, and they're very similar to that other one. Whether you self it to itself or self it to the first one, I guess, is either one of those better to move forward with, or would it be the self to the self again version 2?
Yeah, if you're looking to kind of stabilize long term, you're going to want to kind of self to the self version 2 that looked the most similar to the traits that we're looking for. So again, whatever you want to stabilize is what you want to be crossing, kind of that pathway.
Okay. Well, this is all good stuff. And somebody just said, oh, they know what an F2 is now. Listen, this stuff is not. Everyone said, like you said, it gets a little complicated. Everyone says F1, F2s, blah blah blah, like S1 selves. Like I never knew, and I just, from conversations we had 2 or 3 podcasts ago, or conversations, whatever you want to call them, was like, well, no, if you take feminized pollen from plant A and you're not putting it to the same plant, you put it to some other plant. Well, you're getting F1s, but they're feminized F1s, and I thought F1s were always male and female. So I'm not a super smart guy, but that was, I remember when that happened, I was like, bing, it went off, right? So is there anything else in relation to generations and this stuff that you've seen people talk about incorrectly in the past? Maybe you could just touch on, just to give people like some background information.
Yeah, so it's pretty much kind of the selfs and back crosses that people kind of mix up sometimes and don't quite understand. And then again, because we're coming from an industry where people just kind of say whatever in forums, things like that, I feel it's kind of gotten a little bit mixed up that what somebody thinks is an F1 is actually an S1 or a back cross or something. So it's really just trying to get everybody on the same page that, if we're going to use this lingo, let's use it in kind of the correct manner so that everybody actually knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and again, maybe we could start going into these questions, Kurt, or are you wanting to do something specific in the back crossing, Kurt? Is that why you asked it? Because I think the back crossing is an interesting thing that I don't know a whole lot about, but I've heard some people talk about it, from time to time. And it's like, if you had 2 different plants, like I had the mother was a frozen bag by Robin Hood, and the male was a male from Holy Moly Donut Shop, which was Dead by Dawn genetics. Is there, now that we have this, freeze-dried donuts cross, backing it up, say, if I wanted to back it up and go, I want to, maybe I made a little bit of mistake, I want to back up and I don't have any more seeds of the frozen bag, or the male, is there a way to take that F1 or S1 and try to get it as close to either one of the parents? Is there a way to do that?
So in this case, we don't have either of the parent plants anymore.
Yeah. Maybe we have
So-
some F1 pollen. Maybe we have pollen that we've collected, but yeah, the mom, I guess so that would mean we still have access to the male, I guess. But if it's the mom, how do you isolate traits back to the mom if you don't have any of the moms, I guess? Or is it even possible?
Yeah. So it's never fully possible, I guess. Well, I guess if you really breed a long time and have a large volume of seeds, you can. So what you're going to do in that case, if I say I self a plant, I grow out, say, 10 seeds out of that, and I know, okay, that this one has the bud structure of that mother plant that I wanted, and this other kind of seed has this other trait, but they both don't have kind of both. I would take those two plants and cross those together.
Okay, so it makes sense to know the parents. Hey, this one was tall and spread out and big buds, and this one was short and stocky and had that sort of that thing. So if you use that, you go, okay. So yeah, man, I'm out of questions for my stuff. So I don't know if you want to go
Awesome.
into.
No, I'm glad we got like those questions were definitely more advanced than what my brain could come up with. But I did get this mail flipped over just because we've hit an hour. I'm gonna start collecting the comments, guys. So if you want to get in on Mike's giveaway and the bud trainer giveaway after that, #seeds. But yeah, I guess what I'm learning from this particular conversation is how rare and hard to keep a pheno can be, because it's like, yeah, like I'm doing all this process to try and get seeds of this Kurtz cut that I've liked so much. And hey, if we don't get the exact same thing, it is what it is. But like it's almost like collecting cards here. It's like you've got. Let's take hockey cards, for example. There's, the Wayne Gretzky base rookie card. And then there's the perfect condition base rookie card. And then there's, say, like different variations of this rookie card. They're all a Gretzky card, but, that perfect pheno, the perfect condition one, maybe there's one out of, 100,000 packs. And then if you do get that, you can't replicate it, pretty much, is what I'm hearing, Scott.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And again, that's where I see a lot of, I guess I'd say mislabeling throughout the industry with certain kind of, I would call them kind of the popular hype strains where, someone's like, hey, these are the two parents that made this one hype strain that came out. So if I get seeds from those other two things and cross them, all of a sudden I have the same strain. And it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? So that's where kind of giving credit to the breeders for those breeder cuts. That is the actual plant that made it famous. You can't just, you can get something similar probably, but you're not going to have that exact same plant ever by just crossing two of the same kind of seeds of parents to make that offspring come out.
Gotcha. So like the super famous strains, like the White Widow, the Pineapple Express, like how does somebody get to that? Or is this like somebody smoked a Pineapple Express, somebody else thought they smoked a Pineapple Express, they smoked completely different, yeah, I don't want to use the buzzwords because we're on YouTube, but completely different phenos. They had different terps, they had different, percentages of THC and all that. And, everybody smoked Pineapple Express, but no two people likely in different cities have smoked the same Pineapple Express.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes in a lot of places. So
Okay.
that's where it gets a little challenging. And you always wonder, like, what was the original plant like?
Yeah, well, it's funny because you see, we got some old school growers in the chat here talking about how S1 seeds are trash and, they want their weed from the 90s and all that stuff. And I've seen people online, somebody says they're growing X strain, and then somebody's like, no, I had the original from 1992. That doesn't look anything like it, blah, 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 blah. Like people get pretty fired up about this, but, it's a good chance those people that are super PO'd probably are in the wrong, is what I'm hearing.
Most likely. One of the other things that's kind of interesting is that you do see over time genetic mutations happen throughout the plant. So the longer you keep a plant around or a mother plant, the more likely you are to kind of stack those genetic mutations over time. They aren't all necessarily bad, but you do see kind of THC decline over time. What I've seen with kind of mother plants, and to keep them long term, which is why people usually go to tissue culture. But when you have somebody that has a cut they've been holding this cut for 20 years as a mom, I guarantee that plant is not growing the same as that plant did 20 years ago.
Yeah. Wow, man. So if you find a pheno that you like and you have a good harvest, guys, like hold on to it dearly, because once you finish it, it's gone forever. You can order a second Big Mac, but the sauce is going to be different. And when you do that, and yeah, like I flowered the mother of the Kurt's cut. I'm actually going to be doing a full seed to harvest video. Well, I guess not seed to harvest. Whenever I decided that I was going to flower the mother plant to harvest, kept a clone of that. That mother was a clone itself because I flowered the original seed. Now I've taken 3 clones of that mother plant. One of them I've converted to the male. One of them I flipped to flower to be pollinated by that male and get my S1. The third I'm re-vegging now because I originally flowered both of them to put seeds in both of them, but then I got scared that the male wasn't flipping. Then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose this. So I'm like frantically pulling this out of the flower tent and re-vegging it. So like, let's say everything goes wrong with my breeding project. The male doesn't end up pollinating my female, and I don't get the S1. This re-vegged new mother, which is a cut of a cut of a cut, like I'm probably not going to be getting the same results as I would have from that original mother.
I think it'll still be very similar. So I wouldn't worry. I mean, again, they do hold long term, but what you'll see is especially when you're doing kind of large scale commercial, if I'm taking a bunch of cuts off of a mother plant, you always have kind of 1 or 2 plants that don't kind of react the same. And something's happened, some sort of mutation along the way. It's not going to be in every single plant, but it does kind of show up sporadically. And there isn't really kind of after this much time it happens, it just appears every once in a while.
Okay, cool. Mike, why don't we talk about the giveaways now?
I want to do one question. We are going to do it. I want to go one question because Dave T has a great question, because he goes, at what plant age do you spray? And if you have a clone and it's a clone of a clone of a clone, and that plant is very mature in its life cycle in theory, but if you were starting from a seed and you wanted to sell a seeded plant, I have seen some maturity talks on the internet about, well, if you from a seed and it's only 3 weeks old and you throw it in the flower, that plant could react differently if it was a from seed 6 months later, right? In relation to its thing. Does that have any hold here? Because as you guys know, I like growing in bud cups. So my plants sometimes are not that old, right? If it's a clone, I get it. But can you talk about that a bit, Scott? Is there some differences in that age of the actual plant?
Yeah, so it depends on the plant really itself, but some of the plants do have sort of a maturity kind of threshold where they actually need to be a certain age before it kind of flowers more effectively. It will stall out. So some plants you can basically pop the seed under 12-12 right from day one, you know what I mean? And it'll start flowering, say about 2 weeks after it's sprouted, it'll be a really tiny small bud. And other kind of cultivars just don't seem to respond as quickly to that. So it's really kind of more of a cultivar specific thing. But if you're looking at doing, say, a very accelerated breeding program, I've been able to spray plants about 2 weeks from seed and then kick them into flower like that 3rd week and still get really good pollen set and things like that. So you can go a lot faster than I think people really think. It doesn't need to be a giant plant in order for you to be able to create pollen.
Yeah. Well, and or to generate seeds, because I have a lot of seeds here that I got. Oh, look at it. Eh?
Here's my mail. This was last night. And yeah. So I did the whole plant here. Actually, one of the questions I was gonna have. So this is been in flower close to 4 weeks now. When does the pollen start coming off? Because I don't think any of these have quite burst yet.
Yeah, no, you'll see that basically the pollen sacs will kind of swell up and they'll start kind of hanging down, and then they'll drop pollen. So I'd say in this case, you're probably another, I'd say probably like week and a half away or so before you might start
Okay.
seeing the first kind of pollen drop.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, I was curious about that. I'm like, maybe pollen's flying around my house already, and I just haven't noticed. But that's reassuring that I probably have some more time. So, all right, Mike, what are we giving away here, my friend?
Okay, so what it is up for grabs is winner's choice. It is either a Evo 3 by AC Infinity or an Evo 4 by AC Infinity. And an Evo 3 is more of a 2x4 light. It's long and it's got 3 bars. The Evo 4 is a 4-bar, more square light, probably for like a 3x3 or very underpowered 4x4. But these are the 2 lights. It's going to be US and Canada. It's just, listen, the Canadian shipping from a light from AC Infinity is about 120 some bucks. I'm going to cover it. It's going to be part of it. I'm going to use my store credit, so it's not a big deal. Anywhere else, man, it could be $300 or $400, and I don't have enough store credit to cover it. So if AC Infinity has from their website cheap shipping to you, it'll probably work. If not, it'll have to be US or Canada, and we can figure that out. And if for some reason the person who wins is not US or Canada, and this is going to be an issue, maybe I want to give this light away. So if that becomes an issue, we'll come back and I'll make another video, and you can post it, we can post it, we can do another draw on comments or something. I hope that's not the case. I hope once we do the draw right here, everything will be good, but I want to make sure it gets to somebody, you know what I mean?
Well, we're so privileged to have Scott. Every time I think, okay, we've gotten everything we need to know, like we have another full hour, and then we're like, okay, more questions will come up. So I'm just going to run through the starred questions real quick. How long does the mixture last? So when you mix it, it'll last for at least one plant. Would you stretch it to maybe 2 plants over like a year period, or you want like a fresh batch every time you're doing a conversion?
Yeah, once you've mixed the STS, you find that I haven't kind of gone through and seen shelf life. I've had some where typically they say you want to mix it fresh each time you're spraying. I've had some left over. I do my first spray and I use it for the second spray, use it for the third spray, and I can get away with kind of a whole cycle. And I haven't seen any kind of issues with that, but I haven't stored it any longer than that. But over time, the efficacy will likely go down.
Okay, we covered how many applications, we covered what plant age, respirator when spraying is ideal, but you can probably get away with an N95 or if you're only doing this once ever, a painter's mask like me. Hopefully I'll let you know if anything's gone wrong in a couple weeks. Somebody asked if you ever get a male after using STS. I would assume that's after breeding with the pollen from the reversed, which would make it a feminized seed, so unlikely.
Yeah, you shouldn't get a male if you are converting a female plant.
Should not get a male. Okay, awesome. That is all the questions, guys. What a generous prize Mike is doing on his own. This is not AC Infinity.
You muted yourself, Kurt.
I did. But anyways, I got the important stuff out there. So let's run this draw, and then we'll do another good prize, but not quite a full grow light after this from Bud Trainer. So stick around. Go check out the previous lives.
Kev 24.
Congratulations. They can just reach out to you via Instagram, Mike, 420 Things.
Just because, well, they can reach out to me via email. I just want to make sure that not a bunch of people are reaching out to me. I don't know if Canna Kev is on my Instagram. I maybe, okay. But if you're not Canna Kev, I mean, that would be ideal. DM me on Instagram. Is he here? Canna Kev, are you here? If you have Instagram, you can do it. I'll get you to take a picture of your YouTube, letting me know it's you, whether you email it to me or DM it to me. We can do that. If not, my email is 420thingsgrow@gmail.com. So that's he can reach out that way, or anybody can reach out that way. If you don't have Instagram, you want to talk about this conversation, you think it's good, and you just want to shoot shit, drop me a line, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna have to edit every episode we've done into like one massive video and like make sure it's chaptered properly, and we'll make like a a digital video version of like a Grow Bible for just breeding. So second prize we're gonna do, guys, is a big bud bundle, which comes with every bud trainer product that we have. So you'll get bud cups, you'll get clips, huggers, pots, and the bud tape as well, in case you do any branch breaking. Mike loves to play with his bud cups almost as much as he likes to grow in his bud cups. But anyways, guys, you'll get a big bud bundle, which is going to be perfect for outdoor season, which is coming up. So I think some people may have even started their outdoor plants already, but if you haven't started it, you can wait for your bud cups to come in. This will be, again, Canada and the US. We can do a $50 gift card if you're outside the Canada or US zones. So good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have 113 people across the 5 channels. Mike's audience seems to be the most, with 83 lovely Canna souls here. EE2201 sounds kind of like C3PO or some sort of droid from Star Wars, but I like it. Congratulations. Reach out to hello@budtrainer.com with a screenshot showing you own that account with your shipping address, and you can pick your pot size, and everything else is pretty standard. I guess you can pick your colors on the other stuff. But yeah, again, I come here thinking I kind of know what I'm doing. I leave here realizing I know less than I thought I did, and it's kind of like getting a birdie on your last hole in golf. It keeps you coming back, right? So, Scott, thank you again for doing this with us. I can't imagine we're not going to at least ask you to come back.
No problem.
So hopefully we can get you back on in the future. Super excited that your license came in for the greenhouse. So I guess hopefully we'll have that to talk about next time. Mike, anything else you want to wrap up with? Because this was your show.
Yeah, no, thanks for both you guys. Thanks, Scott. Like, again, I don't know a resource better than you, who knows how to talk to people and that keeps it simple and keeps it like digestible, man. There's a lot of videos out there that it's just like, what is that guy saying, man? Like, he made me more confused. You are not that guy, so I really appreciate your time. Kurt, thanks for setting everything up. And you guys have it on the Bud Trainer channel. You guys did a quick walkthrough at the facility, with Scott. So you guys check that out, so you can see where Scott does and all the bays and all the greenhouses. I thought that was a cool video. So I'd like to go there someday maybe and take a walkthrough.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Come on by.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you. The next Bud Trainer Live will be next Thursday. We are at the last Thursday of the month already. March flew by. That's a quarter of the year gone, and at least we got the good part of the year with spring.